imagination explores the art of thinking beyond the obvious. And today I have my special guest. He's an author, a speaker, and mentor for business and energetic practices, none other than Mr. Craig Cooke.
Hi, Daniel. How are you?
Welcome, Mr. Greg, and I'm excellent. And well, welcome on Abstract Essay. And can you please introduce more about yourself that I miss?
For having me on the show. Happy to be here. Hopefully, I can provide value to your audience today. And a little quick background. I'll try to keep it short. But most of my career has been in digital marketing. And I started a digital marketing agency, a digital first company way back in, I call it the ancient days of the internet in 1996. I started a company with $1,300, a computer, a couple friends, and struggled for quite a bit, which I think is going to be our main topic of the day, the struggle of entrepreneurship. But long story short, I grew the company, had a lot of success, a lot of failures, but a lot of success. Landed on the Inc. 5000 list 5 years in a row for fastest growing private companies in the United States. Eventually, I sold it in 2019, stayed on in my existing role as CEO for 3 years. And then in 2022, I left. And now I've started a new chapter in life as you mentioned, a business mentor, author, speaker, and I'm also a doctor of Chinese energetic medicine. And I bring in those energetic practices into my work. So yeah, that's me. That's my story.
Yes, and thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world, Mr. Craig. Thank you. And today let's talk about struggling in business. Is it a time to learn business kung fu? Wow, interesting topic, Mr. Craig. If a business kung fu is a martial art for the marketplace, what is the very first non-negotiable stance or mindset a leader must adopt before any technique can be effective?
Yeah, so it's a great question because essentially my book, Business Kung Fu, at its core is a mindset book. And I've taken the principles that I learned from studying martial arts, primarily Chinese Kung Fu, and how I applied it to running my company. And the very, very first thing is that decision to even be an entrepreneur. You have to make that decision and commit. And then once you commit, you really have to have a winning mindset. And that's where martial arts was so important for me. And there's a lot of different things too, just on a foundational level. But to answer your question, that's probably like just the absolute first step.
Mhm. The first absolute first step. Let's talk about the opponent within. In Kung Fu, the greatest battle is often with oneself. What is the most common inner opponent you see entrepreneurs struggling with, and what is the move to disarm it?
Yeah, great question. So yeah, I mentioned this in my book where there's talk about competitors and going up against competitors and winning and losing and so forth. But at the end of the day, the biggest competitor you have out there is actually yourself. It's the inner battle that you contend with on a daily basis. I mean, even today, I still have to contend with it. We all do, and it manifests through negative thinking, negative self-talk, times where there's the phrase out there or the term called imposter syndrome. Many times when people are getting their business going and they're going about, whether they're doing sales or presenting or doing whatever they're doing, right?
Yes.
They get this negative self-talk that, oh, I'm not good enough. Oh, what am I doing? I can't do this. Stuff like that. It's a daily battle that one has to overcome, and you're always working to improve yourself, develop yourself, become the best version of yourself. And as long as I was saying, as long as you are better than you were the day before, then you're winning.
Yes, definitely A battle, people, a battle for sure. The eye of the storm, Mr. Craig. A master find calm in chaos. When everything in a business feels like it's flying apart, cash flow, team, competition, where do you direct your focus to find that still center from which to act decisively?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, you have some great questions right off the bat. So running a company, being an entrepreneur, I feel it's been the most challenging thing in my life. I really feel it's one of the most challenging things that anyone can undertake, and only other people that have done it can truly understand it. And part of that on a daily, weekly, monthly, yearly basis is contending with the chaos, the storms that come about unexpectedly, and that can knock you off balance, through various interactions with people, places, things, situations, circumstances. And you get knocked out of balance through your emotions, highly charged emotions, right? So
Mhm.
the thing that can really help is when someone really prioritizes their self-care and has some sort of practice that engages the entire being. What I mean by that, the mind, body, and spirit. So for me, yeah, I had this great foundation in Chinese kung fu that really carried me really well for at least a decade or so. But the problem was I neglected to take care of myself, and I wasn't doing any training, and I wasn't doing any of those things. And I just gradually became unhealthy. And with that unhealthiness, not only from physical standpoint, it affected my mental and emotional state as well. And then when you have all the pressures of running a company and attending to employee needs, client demands, vendor issues, juggling family life, it compounds. And I ended up finding myself just off balance and out of balance. And in 2014, I was fortunate enough to come across a medical Qigong practitioner. And I had exposure to Qigong from Chinese Kung Fu, but it was the martial kind. And long story short, uh, went to see this gentleman named Russ Anderson, medical Qigong practitioner, a really great guy. And he really helped me get back to center and a sense of balance. So after 6 months, as I was contending with all the storms of running a business, I was much better equipped and able to navigate and really be my old self again, to operate from a state of centeredness and balance, and be able to navigate all the chaos. So I highly recommend some sort of practice. Qigong was had a profound impact on me and engages the entire being, like I mentioned. But it's people can find other types of modalities as well.
Certainly. Very well said, Mr. Craig. In martial arts, let's say the foundational, the breath is the foundational. What is the equivalent of this situation in business? Let's say the fundamental rhythmic practice that must be mastered to fuel everything else, yet is most often neglected in struggle.
Hmm. Yeah, that's a good question. I think it varies between people. Like everyone comes into this world with their certain gifts, and some people could be naturally talented with speaking or writing,
Mm.
or very like inspirational, getting people to follow their vision to be able to sell, right? So, but there needs to be a solid foundation. That's what I talked about in chapter 1 of my book, is building a solid foundation. And there's a combination of different skill sets that really need to take place, that you need to build upon in order to be successful in the long term. And I equate it to building a foundation in martial arts. From a business standpoint, you should have strong organizational skills. If you don't, uh, yeah, I highly recommend that you start to learn those uh, communication skills, and that's in written format and orally. And that's getting tougher today with all our devices and how people are just getting a little disconnected from each other, even though we're all connected. There's a disconnection and a lack of social interactions, especially in person. That art is being lost a bit. But anyways, the communication, accounting skills, having at least a base understanding of accounting, uh, salesmanship, being able to sell, develop business, how to hunt, how to engage, how to win the sell, how to lead, how building a team and leading a team. All these things are like foundational elements that one must employ and operate on an ongoing basis. I'm not sure if I answered your question exactly the way what you were looking for, but yeah.
You did, Mr. Craig, and thank you for that empowering answer. A true martial artist remains a lifelong student. How does a leader cultivate a beginner's mind in their business, especially when past success creates the illusion of mastery that blind them to threats or opportunities?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, quite often, ego can get in the way. This is another aspect of how we're our own biggest competitor, right? When the egoic self becomes arrogant. In my book, I talk about a model. Maybe we'll touch upon the 5 elements of success, and one of the elements is confidence. Now, when there's an excess state of confidence, it turns into arrogance, and when one is in this arrogant state, they tend to behave in a certain way where they think they know everything. They stop listening to others. They don't have that empty mind that you talked about. They come into meetings with a full cup, not an empty cup, uh, and they're doing a disservice to themselves because there could be information from another person they interact with that could be a game changer. But there's this habit of, oh, I know it all. I'm the best. I do this. I do that. Never giving any credit to the team that's behind them. And it's really dangerous because from what I have observed, they don't even know they're operating at that level. They don't know what they don't know, and they're blinded by their own arrogance, and just can't see the road ahead of them and the disservice that they're doing to themselves.
Certainly. So, Mr. Craig, in a struggle, structure determines resilience. Beyond an organizational chart, what does a strong business structure look like in a practice? Is it a communication flows, decision rights, or a financial buffers?
Hmm. Yeah, good question. You have so many good questions. So
Yes.
yeah, beyond just a organizational chart, right? There should be systems and processes of how the team interacts with each other to execute on a variety of activities that take place throughout the day through different departments. So processes need to be defined in the flow of activities, and then systems, how those activities are managed, and the tools that are in place to aid in the flow of those processes. That's one thing. Also, I find it's extremely important to have a strong organizational brand culture. Culture is something that people talk a lot about these days, and it's kind of a buzzword out there, but to really do it right takes effort. And the way I define that is to really take the time to define your organizational brand culture, taking the time to create what I call the verbal expression, where you articulate what you stand for, not just your mission and your value statements. It goes beyond that. What's your higher purpose? Why do you even exist? What benefit do you provide society? And then you can have your mission, your values, your destiny, and then um, your patterns of behavior also, because essentially a culture is a group of people that exhibit a pattern of behavior, and it's natural, it's not forced. That's why there's the saying by Peter Drucker out there that culture eats strategy for breakfast. Because if everyone has a natural pattern of behavior that is of exemplary performance, high levels of customer service, and just a mindset of excellence, and that's just ingrained and reinforced, and it just happens naturally, like an operating system. it's not forced, it happens naturally, things are going to take care of themselves quite often, actually.
Mr. Craig, let's talk about the economy of motion. Kung Fu values efficiency, no wasted movement. So, what's a common wasted motion in struggling business, and what's the drill to cut it out?
Okay, that's a good one. Okay, all right. One that just immediately came to mind is too much talk. Right?
Yes.
People love to talk, sit in meetings and talk, and let's have the meeting to plan the meeting. Meet, talk, and suddenly an hour goes by. Suddenly 2 hours goes by, and what gets done? You get a bunch of people in the room that talk about doing the work, but they actually don't do the work, and it's um, highly inefficient. So.
Yeah.
So the efficient thing to do, as you referred to, one thing is to reduce the meeting time, give a directive. There was a point in my company's history where I started noticing this um, kind of pattern to be taking place. So I started to implement 30-minute meetings rather than an hour. Like, hey, meetings need to be 30 minutes from now on. They don't need to be an hour. What? But no. We can get it done in 30 minutes. There's no reason to have meetings longer than 30 minutes. And everything was getting done. What used to take an hour to hour and a half would get done in 30 minutes because people are just more efficient. They can be more efficient. And it is something I've noticed too, is making sure that there's this reinforcement of doing work and attacking work, getting it done, rather than talking about the work all the time. I was in the marketing business, right? And there's a lot of clients that were large companies, and we would work with other agencies and partner on initiatives. And I noticed these really large agencies would have 10, 15, 20 people on a project, and they all talked about the work, but hardly anyone did the work, and timelines would get blown out, budgets, and I just saw it time and time again. It was really interesting. So I think operating in a lean manner and making sure that the people that you have on staff are actually doing work also, as opposed to, oh yeah, I need to hire someone to help me. Well, why? What's your load look like? Let's look at that. Really making sure that's being monitored and making sure people are actually doing work more than they're talking about the work keeps things efficient.
Yes, less talking and let's do it.
Yes, that's right. There's a scene from the old movie Conan the Barbarian where Arnold Schwarzenegger is standing.
Mhm.
I used to use this as a reference with people on my team where there's a scene where all these people are talking and he's standing there quiet, and suddenly he gets mad and just says enough talk, and then he starts like beating everybody up. It's a funny scene, because he's tired of everyone talking nonsense, and then he just goes into action mode. So yeah, that was kind of,
Definitely.
yeah.
We need action, people. We need the action. So, Mr. Craig, let's talk about the finishing move. Not to destroy, but to decisively win the engagement. In a business context, what is the constitutes a finishing move that creates clarity, secures a client, or establishes undeniable market position without burning resources?
Yeah, another good question. Well, there could be a number of different examples, but let's say a project is executed and finished, completed for a client, and there's follow up, and that
Mm,
there's a relationship that's been established, and it's extremely important that that relationship is nurtured so that it can grow. It's like you finish the project, and it's just the first date or interaction for a specific period of time. But if there is proper communication and consideration and care to nurture that relationship, then it can grow into something that's really fruitful for both sides, for both parties, where as a business, you're getting bigger budgets from the client, better projects, better, better interesting, more interesting work, and then the client is getting great work that's helping them achieve their goals and objectives, and what they're setting out to do. So really, it's that engagement, that ongoing engagement to nurture and grow a relationship is important.
Truly, truly important. So, Mr. Craig, Bruce Lee spoke of being formless like water. What
Hmm.
does it look like for a business to have such a deeply ingrained principles that it can be adopted in strategies and tactics instantly without losing its core identity?
Yeah, that's good. Um, so with his metaphor of be water or be like water, water is yeah, as you said, fluid, and it adapts. It's formless. It adapts form. It takes the path of least resistance, right? So in business, there are times when you need to adapt because certain, maybe there's a certain target market you're pursuing, it's just not working, it's utilizing too many resources, it's not profitable. Maybe there's a service line that you've been successful with for 5 years, but suddenly the market has evolved and changed, and no one's buying that particular type of service or product anymore, right? So you have to navigate these pathways and adapt and flow, and not get stuck and be rigid in a particular idea, too attached to something that was successful. We had to adapt numerous times through our business in order to stay successful, just because of the constant dynamic nature of the business environment.
Mr. Craig, let's talk about the dojo culture. Your business is your training hall. How do you intentionally build a culture that values disciplined practice, respectful challenge, and collective growth, turning a daily grind into a path of mastery for everyone?
Yeah, yeah, very good. So that goes back to the organizational culture that I was talking about earlier. As you articulate what you stand for and your higher ideals, that's really making sure that that gets reinforced continuously to the team so that they remember, well, one, they initially understand and then remember that the work they do actually matters. It's not just the grinding of the day to day, because that could get have an impact on anybody. But having that higher idea helps in those times, like, well, this work does matter, so let me keep at it, and just when it comes to excellence, mastery, all those different things, it's about reinforcing certain principles that you stand for. Like, actually, we would have a theme every year for our company. And one of the years, actually, we did it 2 years in a row because it was such a hit. The theme was Master of Your Craft. So that was the theme for the year. And every quarter we would get together and have discussions and content around that theme, which reinforced our brand culture, what we stood for. So, and that was so popular and went over so well, we actually repeated it. It was the only theme that we actually repeated it. But things like that, it's doing the that initial messaging and defining, articulating, but then the reinforcement of that culture is extremely important.
Very well said, Mr. Craig. But before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people, because my Abstract Essay is already in sixth season. Abstract Poetry in third season, and my Book 101 Review in sixth season as well. Comedy 101 in third season, and my Food 101 in sixth season as well. Geography 101, Love Letters, Movie 101 Review, Music 101 of fifth season. Science 101, Sex 101 in its fourth season, Trivia 101, Law 101, Mental Health 101, and Motivation 101, Entrepreneurship 101, and of course, my Bible Verses 101 are my baby podcasts. So please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. And
Awesome.
Mr. Craig, I'm inviting you to be part of my Entrepreneurship 101, and let's talk about entrepreneurship mindset. If you're
Hmm.
interested.
Oh yeah, that'd be great. I'd be happy to, and I'm very impressed. All these different shows that you have. That's amazing.
Thank you, thank you. So, looking forward for our second episode on Entrepreneurship 101. If you were to design the final test for a business kung fu black belt, what would be the criteria be? What would be the financial metric, a leadership quality, or the ability to navigate a specific crisis with grace and power?
Yeah. Well, we're talking about measurement, and you got to manage the business by the numbers because the numbers don't lie, and you have to have a strong intention for your goals and objectives for the year. And your goals should be around growth with certain objectives that are very specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and timely in a SMART framework. So if you're doing that, things will take care of themselves with that strong culture, and then you can reach that level of mastery.
Yes, well, thank you, Mr. Craig, for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world once again. So, can you please invite our listeners to support your book, your advocacy, your business, or whatever projects that you're doing right now?
Thank you. Yes, people can contact me by going to my website, craigcooke.com. That's E at the end of Cook, craigcooke.com. Also, you just Google me. I come up all over the place. Go on LinkedIn, Craig Cooke. You'll find me. There you can download the first chapter of my book for free. There's also a free discovery consultation for my business mentorship. And then with my energetic practices, there's a free Qigong exercise I provide as well. Just go to craigcooke.com. It's all there. That's the good way.
Yes, people, let's support Mr. Craig Cooke because if you support him for sure, more and more empowering books like this to rise. More and more empowering advocacy will be implemented. So, Mr. Craig, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Daniel. I appreciate it.
Monica people, see you soon.